Private First Class. Jimmy Dalton is going to die in exactly 4 minutes and 30 seconds. But he does not know this yet. What he knows is that his entrenching tool just bounced off the coral for the 3rd time, and his hands are going numb from the impact. November 20th, 1943. Betio Island, Tarawa Atoll. The water had seemed like the dangerous part. Dalton waded through 400 yards of it, with bullets snapping past his helmet, and Marines dropping face first into the surf around him. He made it to the beach thinking the hard part was over. He was wrong. The beach is where men come to dig or die, and the coral will not let him dig. He swings the entrenching tool down with both hands. The blade hits and skips sideways, barely scratching the white surface. His wrists jar so hard he almost drops it. Behind him, a machine gun is chewing up the waterline. Ahead of him is flat open ground and more guns. He needs a hole. Any hole. Somewhere to get below the metal that keeps screaming overhead. Dalton repositions, chooses a new spot, swings again. Same result. The standard issue entrenching tool has a small rectangular blade, designed for French mud and North African sand. It worked perfectly at Camp Pendleton, where Dalton could dig a 6-foot fighting position in 20 minutes. His father taught him to work Iowa soil from the time he could hold a shovel. Digging is supposed to be the easy part. Not here, not on coral that feels like concrete. A mortar round hits 30 feet away, and Dalton throws himself flat. Coral fragments patter across his back like hail. His ears ring. He tastes blood where he bit his tongue. When the dust clears, he scrambles back to his knees and attacks the ground again. Panic makes him faster. 3 strikes. 4. 5. He is chopping, like he is splitting wood back home. Each impact sends lightning up his forearms, but the coral beneath him is still nearly flat. 1 minute gone. Staff Sergeant Daniel Murphy is watching this from behind a disabled Amtrak 60 yards back. He is watching because he cannot look away. He has already seen 12 men die trying to dig in. He knows what is coming next. He is timing it in his head, because timing is the only thing that makes sense anymore. Timing is data. Data might mean something later, if there is a later. Dalton gets his blade wedged into a crack and tries to pry a chunk loose. The folding hinge on his entrenching tool flexes. One of the rivets pops. He does not notice. He has carved out a depression maybe 3 inches deep. It is not enough. Not even close. A fighting position needs to be 18 inches minimum. 2 feet is better. 3 feet means you might actually survive the day. 2 minutes. The Japanese machine gun crew in the bunker 200 yards inland has perfect overlapping fields of fire. They trained on this beach for months. They know every approach, every angle, every spot where the Americans will try to stop and dig in. The gunner traverses left. Finds Dalton. Does not fire yet. He is patient. He waits for the American to commit, to focus on his digging, to stop being aware of everything else. Dalton finds another crack and hammers the blade in deep. It holds. He leans his full weight on the handle, and a piece of coral the size of his fist breaks free. It is progress. Real progress. He goes at the new hole with desperate speed. The blade is chipping now. He can feel it catching on rough edges. One of the fold joints is loose. It does not matter. Nothing matters except getting deep enough to matter. 3 minutes. Murphy sees the gun barrel track onto Dalton. He opens his mouth to scream a warning, but there are 40 other men between them, and the sound would never carry over the chaos. He watches Dalton work. The kid is doing everything right. good posture, efficient strikes, using cracks in the coral instead of trying to chop through solid sections. Smart. Dalton is smart and strong, and he worked his whole life with tools, and none of it is going to save him, because the tool in his hands was not designed for this. 3.5 minutes. Dalton has a hole now, maybe 6 inches deep. He can get his shoulders below ground level if he lays flat. It is not enough, but it is something. He keeps digging. His uniform is soaked through with sweat. Coral dust coats his face and arms. His hands are bleeding where the tool handle rubbed through the skin. He does not feel it. He feels the ground slowly giving way. Inch by inch, he is going to make it. He has to make it. Jenny is waiting back home. They are supposed to get married when he gets back. He has the ring in his pack. 4 minutes. The machine gunner fires a test burst. Tracers arc across the beach. He is getting a feel for the wind, for the distance. Other Marines see the tracers and press themselves flat or scramble for cover that does not exist. Dalton does not see it. He is in the hole now, chipping away at the bottom, trying to go deeper. The entrenching tool blade is bent at a 5-degree angle. Another rivet has sheared. The handle flexes dangerously every time he strikes. It is going to break soon, but soon does not matter. Another 3 minutes, and he will be deep enough. Another 5 minutes, and he will have actual cover. He does not have 5 minutes. He does not have 3. 4 minutes and 30 seconds. The machine gunner fires for effect. 3-round burst. Center mass. Professional work. Dalton drops face first into the hole he spent 4.5 minutes creating. His fingers are still wrapped around the entrenching tool handle. Blood spreads across the white coral, soaking into the scratches and divots he carved with his own hands. The hole is 8 inches deep, 10 inches in the center, where he broke through a weak section. It would have been enough in soft soil. It would have been enough anywhere, except here. Murphy watches the body stop moving. He marks the time. 4 minutes 30 seconds from shore to hole to death. He has been keeping count all morning. The average is 6 minutes. The fastest was 3 minutes 40 seconds. The longest was 11 minutes before a mortar hit. Nobody has successfully dug in. Not one man has created a fighting position deep enough to provide real cover. Around Murphy, the beach is filling with bodies and abandoned equipment. Some Marines have given up on digging. They are stacking corpses for cover. It works until sustained fire turns the bodies into pieces. The smell is already unbelievable. Seawater and blood and opened intestines baking in the tropical sun. The white coral is turning pink, then red, then brown as the blood dries and mixes with coral dust. A colonel comes sprinting along the waterline, hunched low, moving fast. His name is David Shoup, and he will later receive the Medal of Honor for this nightmare. But right now his face is gray and his jaw is clenched so tight, Murphy can see the muscles jumping. Shoup dives behind the Amtrak, lands hard, rolls onto his back, gasping. They stare at each other. 2 men crouched behind a bullet-riddled vehicle on a beach that is eating the 2nd Marine Division alive. "We need to get off this beach," Shoup says. His voice is steady, but his hands shake when he pulls out a map. "We need cover first, sir," Murphy replies. "Can't advance without positions to fall back to." "Then dig." "Can't dig in coral, sir. Not with these." Murphy holds up a bent entrenching tool he picked up from a dead private. The blade is twisted, the hinge is cracked, the edge looks like a saw. Shoup stares at the tool. Then he looks out at the beach. Really looks. At the scattered attempts at foxholes that are barely divots. At the Marines pinned flat because they have nowhere to hide. At Dalton's body, sprawled in its pathetic 8-inch scrape. "How long?" Shoup asks. "How long does it take to get deep enough?" "Saw one man get close," Murphy says. "Took him 38 minutes. Tank moved up and drew fire. Without that, he would have been dead at minute 9. 38 minutes is impossible. The Japanese have mortars zeroed on every section of beach. Their machine guns can sustain fire indefinitely from reinforced bunkers. They spent months preparing this killing ground. They predicted it would take 1,000,000 men 100 years to take Tarawa. They were wrong about that, but they were right about the beach. A runner slides in beside them. Kid is maybe 17. His helmet has a bullet hole through the crown. Somehow he is untouched. He delivers his message in a voice that keeps breaking. "Sir, Colonel Jordan reports 3rd Battalion has 70% casualties. He is requesting permission to withdraw to the reef line. They cannot establish defensive positions." Murphy watches Shoup do the math. The terrible math. How many men can die before this landing collapses completely? Whether it is better to retreat and admit defeat, or push forward into more killing zones with men who have no cover. "Denied," Shoup says finally. "We hold and push inland at nightfall." The runner leaves, probably to die delivering the next message. Shoup turns back to Murphy, studies him for a long moment. "This coral problem, you have ideas." It is not a question. Murphy has been staring at broken entrenching tools all morning. He has been timing deaths, watching the tools fail in exactly the same way every time. The blade angle is wrong. The striking edge is too broad. The hinge system flexes under stress. The whole design assumes soil that gives way under pressure. Coral does not give way. Coral shatters, or it does not move at all. "Yes, sir," Murphy says. "I have ideas." "Then you have 3 months, Shoup says. "Next island is Kwajalein. We are not doing this again. You understand me, Sergeant? We are not watching this happen again." Murphy understands. He understands that 76 hours later, when Betio is finally secured, 1,009 Marines will be dead. He understands that he will walk the beach and count the entrenching tools lying beside bodies. He understands that he will pick up Dalton's tool, the one with the bent blade and sheared rivets, and carry it back to base camp like evidence from a crime scene. He will study that tool every night while other men try to forget. He will measure angles and test rivets, and sketch modifications on any paper he can find. The other sergeants will think he has lost his mind. They will call him Shovel Dan. They will make jokes. Murphy will ignore them because he has the numbers burned into his memory. 4 minutes 30 seconds for Dalton. 6 minutes 12 seconds for Rodriguez. 3 minutes 40 seconds for Chen. 8 minutes 18 seconds for Patterson. 11 minutes 6 seconds for Williams, who almost made it deep enough. He knows exactly how long it takes to die on a coral beach with a tool that does not work. He also knows, with absolute certainty, that he can fix this. The entrenching tool can be modified. The blade can be redesigned. The angle can be changed. It will not bring back Dalton or the others, but it might save the next 1,000 men who get ordered to dig holes in hell. Murphy has 3 months to convince the United States Marine Corps that a sergeant from Pennsylvania knows more about entrenching tools than the engineers who designed them 25 years ago. After Tarawa, those seem like pretty good odds. Staff Sergeant Daniel Murphy has not slept properly in 42 days. Every time he closes his eyes, he sees Dalton dropping into that 8-inch hole. He hears the wet sound of bullets hitting flesh. He counts the seconds. 4 minutes 30. The number loops in his head like a broken record. It is January 1944. Base camp on Hawaii. The 2nd Marine Division is reforming after Tarawa. Replacements are arriving to fill the holes in the roster. Fresh-faced kids who do not know yet what coral sounds like when you hit it with a shovel. Murphy could tell them, but he does not. Instead, he sits in a maintenance tent after hours, with broken entrenching tools spread across a workbench like pieces of a puzzle. He has collected 17 of them, brought them back from Tarawa in his sea bag. Some men brought back Japanese flags or samurai swords. Murphy brought back broken shovels. The other sergeants think he has snapped. Combat fatigue, shell shock, whatever the doctors are calling it this week. They leave him alone because men cope in different ways, and if Murphy wants to obsess over tools, then at least he is not drinking himself unconscious every night like half the battalion. But Murphy is not coping. He is working. Every tool failed in the same way. The blade bent or chipped against coral. The folding hinge flexed under stress until rivets sheared. The striking edge was too broad and flat for penetrating hard surfaces. The whole design was perfect for World War I trenches in French mud. It was suicide equipment for Pacific coral. Murphy has filled 3 notebooks with sketches and measurements. He has tested blade angles against pieces of coral he kept from the beach. He has calculated striking force and penetration depth and failure points. He is not an engineer. He was a construction worker in Pennsylvania before the war. But he knows tools. He knows what works and what does not. And he knows with absolute certainty that he can fix this. The solution is so simple it makes him angry. The blade needs to be narrower, more pointed, like a pickaxe instead of a shovel. The angle needs to be sharper for piercing instead of scooping. The hinge needs to lock solid under load instead of flexing. The edge needs to be reinforced. Everything else can stay the same. Same weight. Same size when folded. Same general design. Just modified for the reality of what Marines actually face in the Pacific. Murphy has the drawings done. Now he needs a prototype. There is a vehicle maintenance depot 2 miles from camp. Murphy walks there on his first day of liberty. The motor pool sergeant is a thick-necked man named Kowalski, who looks at Murphy like he is trying to sell something. "I need metalworking tools," Murphy says. "Access to a forge if you have one, and somebody who knows how to work steel." Kowalski spits tobacco juice into a can. "This official business?" "No." "Then get lost. We have trucks to fix." Murphy puts a carton of cigarettes on the desk. Currency that matters more than money. Kowalski eyes it. Does not reach for it yet. "What are you making?" "Modified entrenching tool. Better design for coral." Kowalski laughs. It is not a kind sound. "You are going to redesign military equipment. You, a sergeant." "Yes." "The Corps has engineers for that. Smart guys. College degrees. You know what they would say if some sergeant showed up claiming he could do their job better?" Murphy knows exactly what they would say. He does not care. He slides another carton of cigarettes across the desk. "I need 3 days. Tools and space. That is all." Kowalski takes the cigarettes. Points to a corner of the depot, where welding equipment sits under a tarp. "You break anything, I break you. Clear. Clear." Murphy works 12 hours that first day. He has basic metalworking skills from construction jobs, enough to cut and shape and weld if he goes slow and careful. He starts with a standard entrenching tool and cuts the blade down, narrows it, changes the angle, reinforces the edge with a strip of harder steel, locks the hinge with a pin system that cannot flex under load. By nightfall, he has something that looks like a regular entrenching tool had a baby with a pickaxe. It is ugly, crude. The welds are rough. But when he tests it against a chunk of coral, the blade bites deep instead of bouncing. It holds. He strikes again. The blade penetrates. Again. Chunks of coral break free. The hinge does not flex. The rivets hold. Murphy stares at the tool in his hands, at the pile of coral fragments on the ground. His hands are shaking, not from fear this time, from something else, something that feels dangerously close to hope. He makes 2 more prototypes over the next 2 days, refines the design, improves the welds, tests different blade angles. By the 3rd day, he has something that looks almost professional. He takes it back to camp and shows it to his squad. Corporal Eddie Martinez picks it up, turns it over, tests the weight and balance. "What the hell is this?" "Modified entrenching tool," Murphy says, "for digging in coral." "Looks stupid. Does it work?" Martinez shrugs. "How would I know? We are not on a coral beach." "Then let us find out." Murphy leads them to a training area where engineers have set up obstacles and fortifications. There is a section of hard-packed ground near the obstacle course. Not coral, but harder than regular dirt. Murphy marks out 2 positions, hands Martinez a standard entrenching tool, keeps the modified one for himself. "Dig," Murphy says. "Fighting position. Regulation depth. First one done wins." Martinez grins. He is from Texas, competitive about everything. "What do I win?" "My dessert ration for a week." "Deal." They start digging. Martinez attacks the hard ground with the standard tool. Murphy uses his modification. Within 30 seconds, the difference is obvious. Martinez is chopping and scraping. His blade skips and bounces. Murphy's pointed blade penetrates on every strike. He is pulling up chunks while Martinez is still scratching the surface. Other Marines notice. They drift over to watch. Someone starts timing. Bets get placed. Martinez works harder, puts his back into it. He is strong and skilled, and he is losing badly. Murphy finishes his hole in 18 minutes. Regulation depth. Clean edges. Good firing position. Martinez is maybe 1/3 done. He throws down his tool in disgust. "That is cheating," Martinez says. "Your tool is modified." "That is the point," Murphy replies. A crowd has formed now. 20 Marines, watching this weird demonstration. Sergeant First Class Raymond Burke pushes through. Burke is old corps, 38 years old, which makes him ancient by infantry standards. He fought in Haiti and Nicaragua before the war. He does not like new ideas or people who question how things are done. "What is this?" Burke demands. Murphy hands him the modified tool. "New design. Works better on hard surfaces, coral especially." Burke examines it like Murphy handed him a dead fish. This is not regulation. Regulation tools do not work on coral. They work fine. I have been using them for 16 years. "Have you used them on coral? Under fire? With Japanese machine guns aimed at your head?" Burke's face darkens. He was at Tarawa too. Lost half his platoon. The question lands like a slap. Around them, the other Marines go quiet. This is dangerous territory. You do not talk to senior sergeants like this. Not unless you want to find yourself on latrine duty until the war ends. But Burke does not explode. He looks at the two holes, at Martinez still breathing hard from exertion, at Murphy's clean, deep fighting position, at the modified tool in his hands. "Where did you get this?" Burke asks quietly. "Made it. Vehicle depot. Used broken tools from Tarawa as reference." "You made it?" "You. By yourself." "Yes, Sergeant." Burke turns the tool over, tests the hinge, examines the blade angle. He is quiet for a long time. The Marines around them wait. Murphy can feel his career hanging by a thread. Burke can end this right now. Confiscate the tool. Report Murphy for unauthorized modifications of military equipment. Make the whole thing disappear. Instead, Burke says, "Make me one." Murphy blinks. "Sergeant, make me one of these. I want to test it myself. And if it works as well as you say, you are going to show me how to make more. Because I am not watching another Tarawa. You understand me, Murphy? I am not watching that again." Murphy understands. He spends the next week making modified tools for Burke and 3 other sergeants. Word spreads through the division. The weird shovel that actually works. More sergeants show up. Then lieutenants. Then a captain who heard about it from his platoon. Murphy sets up an assembly line in the motor pool. Kowalski stops complaining when Murphy starts paying in cigarettes and liquor. They work at night after duty hours. Murphy teaches other Marines how to make the modifications. Cut here. Weld there. Reinforce this edge. Lock this hinge. It is not complicated. Any decent metalworker can do it in 3 hours. By February, they have made 47 modified tools. The Marines who carry them treat them like sacred objects. They are not standard issue, so they are technically contraband. Nobody cares. You can have their modified entrenching tools when you pry them from their cold, dead hands. Then the officers find out. Captain James Hendricks shows up at the motor pool on a Tuesday morning with 2 MPs. He is Supply Corps, never seen combat. He looks at Murphy's operation like he found an illegal distillery. "What is this?" Hendricks demands. Murphy stands at attention. "Tool modification project, sir." "Unauthorized tool modification project. Do you have any idea how many regulations you are violating? Destruction of military property? Unauthorized use of equipment? Operating an unlicensed workshop on military grounds. I could have you court-martialed." "Yes, sir." "These tools are not regulation. They have not been tested. They have not been approved. You cannot just decide to redesign military equipment because you feel like it. The regulation tools do not work on coral, sir. That is not your determination to make, Sergeant." Burke steps forward. He has been standing in the shadows. "With respect, sir, these tools saved lives at Tarawa. Would have saved more if we had them earlier." "You were at Tarawa?" Hendricks asks. "Yes, sir. Lost 23 men. Watched most of them die because they could not dig in fast enough." "That is unfortunate, but it does not give you authority to modify equipment." "Then who has that authority, sir? The engineers who designed these tools? The ones who never used them in combat? The ones sitting in offices in Washington who do not know what coral sounds like when it breaks your entrenching tool blade? The MPs shift uncomfortably. They are combat Marines too. They know what Burke is saying. Hendricks senses he is losing the room. "I am shutting this down," Hendricks says. "Confiscate all modified tools. Return them to standard configuration. Sergeant Murphy, you are on report." "Sir." It is a new voice. Colonel Shoup stands in the doorway. Nobody heard him arrive. He looks at the modified tools, at Murphy, at Hendricks. What seems to be the problem, Captain? Hendricks explains. Unauthorized modifications, violations of regulation, proper channels. Shoup listens without expression. When Hendricks finishes, Shoup picks up one of the modified tools, tests the weight, examines the blade. Sergeant Murphy, Shoup says, how many men could we have saved at Tarawa if every Marine had one of these? Murphy does the math he has done 100 times in his head. Average time to dig with standard tool versus modified tool. Casualty rates. Exposure time under fire. The numbers are ugly, but clear. Conservative estimate, sir. 200 dead becomes wounded. 300 wounded becomes unhurt. Maybe more. Shoup nods slowly. He hands the tool back to Murphy. Turns to Hendricks. Captain, I am authorizing this project. Sergeant Murphy will continue modifications under my direct supervision. You will provide whatever resources he needs. Materials, space, personnel, and you will do it immediately. Hendricks stares. Sir, this is highly irregular. So is 76 hours of combat that produces the worst casualty rate in Marine Corps history. So is watching men die because their equipment does not work. Do you know what is regular, Captain? Following orders. Mine. Right now. Clear? Yes, sir. Shoup leaves. Hendricks follows, fuming. The MPs leave too. Burke grins at Murphy. Congratulations, Shovel Dan. You just got official. But official is not the same as easy. Murphy soon discovers that getting approval from a colonel is just the beginning. Now he has to navigate the actual military bureaucracy, the procurement system, the supply chain, the engineers who feel insulted that some sergeant thinks he knows better, the forms, the endless forms. He fills out requisition requests that disappear into filing cabinets. He submits design specifications that get lost in inter-office mail. He attends meetings where men in clean uniforms explain why his modifications cannot possibly work, ignoring the 47 tools already in use that prove otherwise. He watches his prototype get sent to a testing facility, where it will be evaluated by engineers who have never been shot at. Weeks pass, then a month, then 2. The next operation keeps getting delayed. Murphy keeps making tools at night, but now he needs official authorization for every piece of metal. Kowalski cannot help him anymore. Everything has to go through proper channels. The Marines who have modified tools guard them jealously. They train with them. They know these tools might be the difference between digging in successfully or dying like Dalton. But there are only 47 tools. The division has 8,000 men. Murphy lies awake at night doing math. The next landing will be Kwajalein, maybe Eniwetok, more coral islands, more beaches. If they go in with standard tools, how many more men die? How many more 4-minute, 30-second countdowns? He has the solution in his hands. He has proven it works. He has Colonel Shoup's approval. And he is drowning in paperwork, while the calendar counts down to the next invasion. In the maintenance tent, late one night, Murphy stares at his original prototype, the crude, ugly tool he made from Dalton's broken shovel. It sits on his workbench like an accusation. He fixed the problem. He did everything right, and the system is burying him anyway. Martinez finds him there at 0200 hours. You okay, Sarge? Murphy does not answer. He is thinking about Tarawa, about the bodies, about the counting, about all the math he did that led him here, to this tent, with this tool, watching time run out again. We are going to run out of time, Murphy says finally. Next operation is coming, maybe weeks, maybe days, and most of the division will still have the old tools, the ones that do not work. Maybe they will approve it before then. They will not. Too much bureaucracy. Too many people who need to sign off. Too many engineers with hurt feelings. So what do we do? Murphy picks up the prototype, feels the weight of it, the balance, the blade that can actually bite through coral. He thinks about Dalton, about the ring in the dead kid's pack that never made it home to Jenny, about all the other rings and letters and photos that are still at the bottom of the Pacific because an entrenching tool could not do its job. We go around them, Murphy says. We make as many as we can. We distribute them quietly. We get them to the Marines who need them. And we do it before someone stops us. Martinez grins. That is definitely against regulations. Everything worth doing is against regulations. They work through the night. By morning, they have a plan. It is risky. It might get Murphy court-martialed. But it might also save lives. And after Tarawa, that is the only math that matters. Lieutenant Thomas Reardon has 18 modified entrenching tools in his platoon, and 37 men who want them. He is trying to decide how to distribute them when the first Japanese artillery round lands 200 yards away and makes the decision irrelevant. September 15th, 1944. Peleliu Island. The landing craft ramp drops, and Reardon's boots hit white coral beach for the second time in his war. He learned at Tarawa what this kind of beach means. He remembers the bodies, the failed holes, the counting. He has 18 tools that might change those numbers. 18 chances to prove Staff Sergeant Murphy right, or watch men die, testing an unproven theory. The beach is chaos. Marines pouring off landing craft into machine gun fire that comes from everywhere and nowhere. The Japanese learned from Tarawa too. They are not defending the beach. They are letting the Americans land, then hitting them from fortified positions in the coral ridges that loom inland. Ridges that were invisible in the reconnaissance photos. Ridges that are now erupting with muzzle flashes and mortar tubes. Off the beach, Reardon screams. Move inland! His platoon sprints forward. Artillery is walking across the landing zone. Each impact throws up geysers of coral and sand. Private Eddie Vasquez takes shrapnel in the leg and goes down. Corporal John Chen grabs him and keeps moving. They make it 50 yards before the order comes down the line. Dig in. Defensive positions. Prepare for counterattack. This is it. This is the moment Murphy's tools either work or they do not. Reardon has 18 modified tools mixed with 19 standard ones. He did not choose who got which. There was not time. Some men grabbed tools from the pile before boarding the landing craft. Some got lucky, some did not. Reardon hits the ground and pulls out his entrenching tool. Modified. Murphy's design. He drove out to that maintenance depot 3 weeks ago and watched the sergeant show him how it worked. Narrower blade, sharper angle, reinforced edge, locking hinge. Murphy demonstrated on a chunk of coral. The blade bit deep. Chunks broke free. It looked too easy. Reardon strikes the Peleliu coral. The blade penetrates. He strikes again. More penetration. The tool is working exactly like Murphy promised. He is 8 strikes in when he hears the sound he has been dreading. 30 feet to his left, Private First Class Danny Morrison is using a standard tool. The blade hits coral and bounces. Morrison repositions. Strikes again. Same result. He is chopping frantically now. The panic is visible in his movements. He needs a hole. The Japanese mortars are finding their range. Every second above ground is borrowed time. Morrison gets the blade wedged in a crack, tries to pry. The hinge flexes. He puts more pressure on it. The rivet shears. The tool partially folds. Morrison stares at it for one frozen second. Then he throws it down and starts clawing at the coral with his bare hands. Reardon is already moving. He crosses the distance in 5 seconds. Slides in beside Morrison, shoves his own modified tool into the kid's hands. "Use this," Reardon orders. "I will get another." Morrison takes the tool, does not question it. Starts swinging. The blade bites. Coral breaks. His eyes go wide. He swings faster. The hole begins to form. Real depth, real progress. He is going to make it. Reardon scrambles back to his original position, grabs Morrison's broken standard tool, tries to work with it. The blade is bent. The hinge is loose. It is nearly useless, but he makes it work through sheer desperation and rage. He creates a shallow scrape. Not deep enough, not close, but he presses himself into it and hopes the next mortar hits somewhere else. All around him, the platoon is digging. The sound is different depending on which tool they have. The modified ones make a sharp, cracking sound as they break through coral. The standard ones make a dull, clunking sound as they bounce and skip. Reardon can tell who has what just by listening. The cracking sounds are getting faster, deeper. The clunking sounds are staying shallow and desperate. Corporal Chen has a modified tool. He is already shoulder deep in his hole. He looks up, sees Private Mike Patterson struggling with a standard tool 20 feet away. Patterson's blade is chipping. Each strike is less effective than the last. Chen finishes his hole to regulation depth, then crawls over to Patterson. "Trade," Chen says. Hands over his modified tool. Takes Patterson's broken one. "But your hole isn't," Patterson starts. "My hole is done. Yours is not. Take it." Patterson takes the tool. Chen crawls back to his position with the broken standard tool and presses himself into the hole he already dug. He is safe now. Patterson will be safe in 10 minutes if he works fast. The math works. This same scene plays out across the platoon. Marines with modified tools finish fast, then either dig deeper for extra protection or pass their tools to men who are struggling. The tools are becoming communal property. Shared resources. Nobody planned this. It just happens because Marines take care of Marines. And the modified tools are the difference between cover and exposure. By the time the Japanese counterattack comes 20 minutes later, Reardon's platoon has 32 fighting positions deep enough to matter. Not everyone has their own hole. Some Marines are sharing. But 32 is better than the 5 or 6 they would have had with all standard tools. Reardon knows this because he was at Tarawa. He knows what 5 or 6 holes means. It means stacking bodies for cover. It means 70% casualties. The counterattack is ferocious. Japanese infantry supported by artillery and mortar fire. They come in waves. The Marines fire from their holes. Protected. Low profile. Hard targets. The Japanese take terrible casualties trying to overrun positions they cannot suppress. After 40 minutes, they fall back. Reardon counts his men. 37 went in. 34 are still combat effective. Vasquez is wounded, but alive. 2 others took shrapnel but can still fight. 0 dead. 0 dead because they got into holes fast enough. 3rd platoon landed right next to them. They had 0 modified tools. All standard issue. Reardon watches their lieutenant count his men. The math is uglier. 41 went in. 31 are left. 10 casualties. 7 dead. 3 wounded. The difference between the platoons is 18 modified entrenching tools. That night, word spreads through the regiment. 1st Battalion has some kind of special shovels. They work on coral. They work fast. Companies that do not have them want them. Marines are asking where they came from, how to get them. Some are offering to trade cigarettes, liquor, anything. Murphy's tools are becoming famous, but there are only about 200 of them spread across 8,000 men. The Supply Corps never approved mass production. The Engineering Corps never finished testing. The Procurement Office never processed the requisitions. Murphy and his team made what they could at night in an unauthorized workshop. 200 tools. It is better than nothing. It is nowhere close to enough. Reardon finds a field telephone and calls back to battalion headquarters. Asks for supply. Gets a bored clerk who sounds like he has never heard a gunshot in his life. "We need more of the modified entrenching tools," Reardon says. "The ones Sergeant Murphy designed. We need them now." "I do not have any record of modified entrenching tools," the clerk replies. "Do you mean standard issue entrenching tools?" "No, I mean the modified ones. Narrow blade, reinforced edge. They work on coral." "Sir, I only have standard issue tools in inventory. If you need replacements, I can arrange a supply drop." "I do not need replacements. I need the modified tools." "Call regiment. Ask for Murphy." "Staff Sergeant Daniel Murphy. He will explain." "Sir, I cannot just call around asking for random sergeants. If you need non-standard equipment, you need to submit a requisition form through proper channels." Reardon hangs up. He stares at the field telephone. Around him, Peleliu is burning. Artillery pounds the ridges. Mortars fall randomly. The smell of death is already settling over the island. And somewhere far away, a clerk is worried about requisition forms. Captain James Hendricks, the same Supply Corps officer who tried to shut down Murphy's operation, is the one who finally arrives on Peleliu 3 days into the battle. He comes ashore on a supply run. Clean uniform, polished boots. He has papers. Always papers. Lieutenant Colonel Lewis Chesty Puller meets him on the beach. Puller is a legend. Most decorated Marine in history. Right now, he looks like he has aged 10 years in 3 days. His regiment took 71% casualties trying to take Bloody Nose Ridge. 7 out of 10 men, dead or wounded. Puller is beyond anger. He is somewhere colder. "Where are the modified entrenching tools?" Puller asks. Hendricks blinks. "Sir? The modified tools? The ones that work on coral? Murphy's design? Where are they?" "Sir, those tools were never approved for production. The Engineering Corps has concerns about durability. The Procurement Office needs additional testing. The proper forms were never—" Puller draws his sidearm, points it at Hendricks. His hand is steady. His voice is very quiet. "I just lost 71% of my regiment trying to take positions we could not dig into. I watched Marines die because they could not establish firing positions on coral ridges. 1st Battalion has some modified tools. They took 30% casualties. 71 versus 30. Do you understand what that difference means, Captain?" Hendricks stares at the pistol. "Sir, you cannot— I can do anything I want on this island. Right now, I want those tools. All of them. I want production started immediately. I want every Marine on Peleliu equipped within 1 week. And I want you to personally explain to the families of my dead Marines why proper forms were more important than equipment that works." Hendricks swallows hard. "I will contact regiment. Expedite the approval process. You will do better than that. You will find Murphy. You will give him whatever he needs: materials, men, authority, and you will do it today, right now. While I am still holding this weapon and thinking about how many of my men died because you were worried about regulations. Puller does not actually shoot Hendricks, but the message is received. By sunset, there is a priority message going back to Hawaii. Murphy is pulled from his unit and put on a transport to Peleliu. They want him to set up production on the island, use local materials, train armorers, produce as many modified tools as possible before the next phase of the operation. Murphy arrives on Peleliu on day 7. He walks the ridges, sees the coral, sees the shallow scraped positions where Marines tried and failed to dig in, sees the bodies. He finds Lieutenant Reardon and asks about the tools. They worked, Reardon says. Saved lives. Not enough of them, but the ones we had worked exactly like you said. Murphy nods. He is looking at a destroyed standard entrenching tool. Bent blade, sheared rivets, exactly like the ones from Tarawa. Same failure pattern, same design flaw. Except this time some men had an alternative. How many? Murphy asks. How many what? How many men are alive because of the modified tools? Estimate. Reardon does math in his head. First platoon, second platoon, companies that had some modified tools versus companies that had none. The casualty rates, the difference. Maybe 200, Reardon says. Could be more. Hard to know exactly. 200 men. Murphy thinks about the 42 days after Tarawa he spent not sleeping, the hundreds of hours in the maintenance depot, the bureaucracy, the mockery, the regulations he broke, all of it to make 200 tools that saved 200 lives. The math works. The design is proven. And now, finally, someone is paying attention. Murphy sets up shop in a bombed-out supply depot. He has 3 armorers, basic metalworking tools, and a pile of standard entrenching tools to modify. No proper forge, no precision equipment, just hammers and cutting torches and coral dust and determination. They work 18-hour days. By the end of week 1, they have produced 80 modified tools. By week 2, 140. By week 3, production stops, because the battle is essentially over and the division is being pulled off the island to recover. But the tools remain. 320 modified entrenching tools now in circulation. Marines guard them like sacred objects. When the division ships to their next assignment, those tools go with them, and word spreads to other divisions, other regiments, other Marines who hear the stories from Peleliu and want to know where they can get shovels that actually work. Murphy's design is no longer a theory or an experiment. It is proven technology. It has a body count in reverse. Men alive who would be dead. The bureaucracy cannot ignore that. The engineers cannot dismiss it. The supply corps cannot bury it in paperwork. Peleliu was hell. The bloodiest battle most Marines had ever seen. But it was also the moment a sergeant's stupid shovel idea stopped being a joke and started being standard operating procedure. Murphy sits on a coral ridge the night before they evacuate. He is holding his original prototype, the crude tool he made from pieces of Dalton's broken shovel. It is battered now, scarred. He used it himself during the battle. It worked. It still works. He thinks about Tarawa, about the counting, about 4 minutes 30 seconds. He thinks about Peleliu, about Lieutenant Reardon's platoon, 0 dead because they dug fast enough. He thinks about all the math that brought him here. 200 lives is not enough. There are still thousands of Marines using standard tools that do not work. The war is not over. More coral islands are coming. Iwo Jima, Okinawa, more beaches, more counting. But 200 is a start. 200 means the design works. 200 means he was right. Murphy packs the prototype carefully. He will need it for the next fight. The fight against procurement offices and engineering boards and supply officers who still think proper forms matter more than dead Marines. That fight is just beginning. But after Peleliu, Murphy has ammunition. He has numbers. He has witnesses. He has tools that work and officers who saw the difference. He has everything he needs except time. The next invasion is coming. And Murphy needs to make sure every Marine has a tool that gives them more than 4 minutes 30 seconds to live. Major Gerald Hutchins has never been shot at in his life, and right now he is explaining to Staff Sergeant Daniel Murphy why that makes him more qualified to evaluate entrenching tools. "You see, Sergeant," Hutchins says, adjusting his glasses, "combat experience creates emotional bias. You witnessed traumatic events. Your judgment is compromised. What we need is objective analysis from trained engineers who can assess the tool's performance under controlled conditions." They are sitting in an office in Washington, D.C. February 1945. Murphy has been pulled from his unit and flown stateside to testify before the Army Equipment Board. 3 months after Peleliu proved his design works. 3 months of reports and testimonials and casualty statistics. And he is sitting across from a major who has never left the continental United States, being told his opinion does not count. "Sir, with respect," Murphy says, "I have objective data. Casualty rates, time trials, field reports from 6 different battalions. 1st Platoon, Fox Company had 18 modified tools, 0 deaths during the initial landing. 3rd Platoon, same company, 0 modified tools, 7 deaths, same beach, same day, same conditions. The only variable was the tool." Hutchins writes something in his notebook. His handwriting is neat, precise. "Correlation is not causation, Sergeant. There could be numerous factors affecting those casualty rates. Positioning, leadership, enemy fire patterns. You cannot definitively attribute the difference to the entrenching tools." Murphy feels something cold settling in his chest. He has been in this office for 90 minutes. He has shown photographs. He has presented Lieutenant Reardon's after-action report. He has demonstrated the tool on a block of concrete they brought in for testing purposes. The modified tool carved through it. The standard tool bounced and chipped. Hutchins watched this happen and wrote more notes. "What would you need?" Murphy asks. "What evidence would convince you?" "Controlled laboratory testing, stress analysis, metallurgical examination, durability studies over extended periods, cost-benefit analysis, safety evaluations. These things take time, Sergeant. We cannot simply rush into production based on anecdotal field reports. Men are dying. Men die in war. That is the nature of combat. Our responsibility is to ensure that any equipment we provide meets exacting standards and will not fail at critical moments." Murphy stares at him. At this man in his clean uniform, with his neat handwriting, who just said, "Men die in war," like he was discussing inventory shrinkage. Murphy thinks about Dalton, about the 4 minutes 30 seconds, about all the counting he has done. He thinks about Peleliu, about Lieutenant Reardon's face when he said, "0 dead," about the tools that worked exactly as designed while men 20 feet away died using regulation equipment. "The current equipment is failing at critical moments," Murphy says quietly. "That is the problem I'm trying to fix. So you claim. But, Sergeant, we have been using the M1943 entrenching tool since 1943. Millions of units produced. If there was a fundamental design flaw, do you not think our engineers would have noticed? They did not fight on Coral Islands. Neither did the Germans or the British, yet they use similar designs. Are you suggesting that military engineers from multiple nations all failed to design adequate entrenching tools? I am suggesting they designed tools for European soil, not Pacific coral. Different materials require different tools. Hutchins sighs. It is the sigh of a patient man dealing with a stubborn child. We will take your suggestions under advisement. The board will review the evidence and issue a recommendation. This process typically takes 6 to 8 months. 8 months? These decisions cannot be rushed. There are procurement contracts to consider, manufacturing capacity, supply chain implications, training materials, field manuals that need updating. You are proposing a significant change to standard equipment. That requires extensive evaluation. Murphy stands. He does not ask permission. He leans over the desk and puts both hands flat on the polished wood surface. Hutchins leans back, suddenly nervous. Major, in 8 months, there will be at least 2 more major amphibious operations. Iwo Jima is happening right now. Okinawa is next. Both are coral islands. Both will require Marines to dig fighting positions under fire. If they go in with standard tools, hundreds of them will die trying. Not might die, will die. I have the numbers. I have watched it happen. I know exactly how long it takes and exactly what it looks like. And you are telling me that procurement contracts are more important than that. Sergeant, I understand you are passionate about this, but do you know what 4 minutes 30 seconds sounds like, sir? That is how long it took Private First Class Jimmy Dalton to die at Tarawa. I timed it. I watched him try to dig in with a standard entrenching tool. Watched the blade bounce off coral. Watched him get more desperate. Watched the machine gun find him. 4 minutes 30 seconds from the moment he started digging until the moment he stopped moving. I have timed 47 deaths that way. The average is 6 minutes 12 seconds. The fastest was 3 minutes 40. The longest was 11 minutes 6 seconds. And that Marine almost made it deep enough before a mortar got him. Do you understand what I'm telling you, Major? I have a spreadsheet of how long it takes Marines to die because their tools do not work. And you want 8 months to think about it. Hutchins has gone very pale. Sergeant Murphy, I think you need to step back. I need you to approve production. Today. Right now. I need you to authorize immediate manufacture and distribution of modified entrenching tools to every Marine unit in the Pacific. I need you to do your job, which is keeping Marines alive. My job, Hutchins says, and his voice has gone cold, is maintaining equipment standards and procurement procedures. Your job is following orders, and right now I am ordering you to leave this office before I have you arrested for threatening a superior officer. Murphy straightens. He has not threatened anyone. He has just told the truth in a way that made a major uncomfortable. But he recognizes the look in Hutchins's eyes. This meeting is over. This avenue is closed. The board will take 8 months to review evidence, and by then Murphy's division will be committed to Okinawa with whatever tools they have. He salutes, leaves, stands in the hallway outside and tries to breathe. A colonel is waiting there. His name is Victor Krulak. He is young for a colonel, 31 years old. He was at Tarawa. He was at Peleliu. He heard the entire conversation through the door. "Walk with me, Sergeant," Krulak says. They walk. Through hallways filled with officers who have never been shot at. Past offices where men are making decisions about equipment they will never use. Krulak does not speak until they are outside, standing in cold February air. "Hutchins is an idiot," Krulak says. "But he is a powerful idiot. He has the ear of the procurement board. And he has decided you are a problem." "I am trying to save lives, sir." "I know. I read Reardon's report. I read all the reports. Your tool works. Everyone who has used it in combat knows it works. But the system does not care about that." "Then what does it care about?" Krulak lights a cigarette, offers one to Murphy. They smoke in silence for a moment. "The system cares about the system," Krulak says finally. "You are asking them to admit they made a mistake, that they issued faulty equipment, that Marines died because of that mistake. Do you know what happens if they admit that? Congressional investigations, court-martials, careers destroyed. So they will not admit it. They will find reasons why your tool is not necessary. They will delay and review and evaluate until everyone forgets or you give up. I will not give up. I know. That is why I am here." Krulak drops his cigarette and grinds it under his heel. "There is another way. Unofficial channels. We cannot get your tool approved through official procurement, but we can get it made and distributed anyway, quietly, through field modifications and local production. What you did on Peleliu, but on a larger scale. That is against regulations. Everything worth doing is against regulations." Krulak smiles. It is not a nice smile. "I know people. Supply sergeants who owe me favors. Quartermasters who care more about Marines than paperwork. Factory foremen who can run extra shifts off the books. We can produce maybe 5,000 modified tools before anyone notices. Get them into the supply chain. Ship them to the Pacific. By the time procurement figures out what happened, half the Marine Corps will be using them, and good luck trying to take them away." Murphy stares at him. "Sir, that could get you court-martialed." "Only if we get caught. And if we do, I will throw you under the bus so fast your head will spin. This conversation never happened. You were never here. You are going to go back to your unit and forget we spoke. Clear?" "Yes, sir." "Good. Now tell me everything I need to know about manufacturing your tool. Materials, specifications, tolerances. I have a meeting with a supply colonel in 2 hours and I want to know exactly what to ask for." They talk for 30 minutes. Murphy draws diagrams on paper Krulak provides, explains the blade angle, the hinge modification, the reinforcement technique. Krulak asks sharp questions. He is an engineer himself. He understands the design immediately. By the end of the conversation, he has 3 pages of notes and a clear plan. "One more thing," Krulak says. "What is the failure rate on your modified tools? Be honest. If we are going to do this, I need to know the risks." Murphy thinks back through Peleliu, through all the after-action reports. "We had 2 blade fractures out of 320 tools. Both were stress fractures from extended use on particularly hard coral. The tools were still functional, just less effective. No hinge failures, no injuries to users, 0 failures during normal digging operations. And standard tools? 43% failure rate under heavy use. That is bent blades, sheared rivets, or damaged hinges that made the tool unusable. Average time to failure was 87 minutes of continuous digging in coral. Krulak writes this down. Jesus Christ. Why is this not in the official reports? It is. Page 14 of the Tarawa After Action Review, Appendix C of the Peleliu Equipment Assessment. Nobody reads past the executive summary. Of course they do not. Krulak folds his notes carefully, puts them in his jacket. You are going back to your unit tomorrow. When you get there, forget this conversation happened. Do not mention my name. Do not talk about what we discussed. In about 6 weeks, you are going to notice new entrenching tools appearing in your supply chain. They will look different. Better. You will not ask where they came from. You will just distribute them and make sure they get used. Understood? Understood, sir. Good. Now get out of here before someone sees us together. Murphy walks away. He does not look back. He catches a transport truck to the airfield. He flies back to the Pacific. He does not think about Major Hutchins, or the equipment board, or the 8 months they want to evaluate tools that have already been proven in combat. He thinks about the 5,000 tools Krulak promised. 5,000 Marines who will have equipment that works. It is not enough. There are hundreds of thousands of Marines in the Pacific. But it is better than nothing. Better than letting the bureaucracy strangle a solution that already exists. 6 weeks later, crates start appearing at supply depots across the Pacific. No paperwork, no authorization forms. Just crates marked, Entrenching Tools, M1943, replacement stock. The supply sergeants open them and find tools that look almost right, but not quite. Narrower blades, different hinge design. They shrug and distribute them. Nobody questions free equipment. Murphy gets 20 crates delivered to his battalion. 400 modified tools. He does not ask where they came from. He distributes them to his companies. The Marines who used the original prototypes recognize the design immediately. The new ones who have never seen them just think they look weird. 2 weeks before the Okinawa landing, Murphy's entire battalion is equipped with modified tools. So are 5 other battalions spread across 3 divisions. 5,000 tools. Distributed through unofficial channels. Made in factories that were not authorized. Shipped without proper paperwork. All of it completely against regulations. All of it necessary, because the system that was supposed to protect Marines chose to protect itself instead. Murphy thinks about Major Hutchins sitting in his Washington office, about the 8-month timeline, about the reviews and evaluations and controlled laboratory testing, about all the reasons why proven equipment should not be approved. He thinks about Dalton, about 4 minutes 30 seconds, about all the other countdowns that will not happen because Marines will dig in fast enough to survive. The math works. The mission works. And if the system wants to court-martial him for that, they will have to explain why they want to punish the man who saved lives. The system could not be bothered to protect. Murphy has spreadsheets. He has casualty comparisons. He has testimony from officers who watch the difference between men with working tools and men without them. He has everything he needs to fight that battle. But first, Okinawa. First, more coral, more beaches, more counting. Except this time, thousands of Marines will have tools that actually work. And the numbers will be different. Murphy sleeps better knowing that. Not well. He still sees Dalton every time he closes his eyes. But better. Because he did something about it. Because the system failed and he went around it. Because sometimes the right thing to do is the thing that violates every regulation. After Tarawa, after Peleliu, after watching men die because equipment failed them, Murphy has learned that regulations are written by people who have never been shot at. And sometimes the only way to save lives is to ignore them completely. The black volcanic ash on Iwo Jima is swallowing Private First Class Robert Chen up to his ankles, and he has been on the beach for 45 seconds. He cannot run, cannot take cover, can barely move. The ash is like trying to sprint through knee-deep water, except the water is made of ground-up volcanic rock that slides and shifts with every step. Behind him, the landing craft is already backing away. Ahead of him is 500 yards of this nightmare leading to terraced slopes where Japanese guns are starting to open fire. Chen has a modified entrenching tool strapped to his pack. He does not know where it came from. It appeared in supply 3 weeks ago. Looks different from the old ones. Nobody asks questions. You do not question free equipment. He is going to need that tool in about 90 seconds. February 19th, 1945. D-Day on Iwo Jima. Staff Sergeant Daniel Murphy is on the 5th wave. He watches the first 4 waves struggle through the ash. Watches Marines sink and flounder. Watches the Japanese hold their fire, letting the Americans get deep into the killing zone before opening up. It is Tarawa all over again, except instead of coral that is too hard to dig, this is ash that is too soft to hold. Murphy's boots hit the beach and immediately sink 8 inches. He pulls his right foot up. His left foot sinks deeper. The ash has the consistency of loose flour mixed with gravel. It provides no traction, no stability, and any hole you dig in it will collapse within minutes as the ash slides back in. This is a new problem. Murphy has been preparing for coral, for hard surfaces, for the need to break through tough material. The modified tools work perfectly for that. But volcanic ash is the opposite problem. Too soft, too unstable. He did not plan for this. "Move inland," someone screams. Murphy cannot see who. The ash is already mixing with smoke from the first artillery impacts. He pushes forward. Each step is exhausting. His legs burn from the effort. Around him, Marines are struggling. Some are crawling because it is easier than trying to walk. The ash clings to everything, gets in your eyes, your mouth, your nose, smells like sulfur and rot. The Japanese open fire properly now. Machine guns from concealed bunkers, mortars zeroed on the beach, artillery from inland positions. The first wave, still struggling to get off the beach, takes immediate casualties. Men drop into the ash. Some try to dig in. The ash swallows their entrenching tools. Every scoop of ash removed just causes more to slide in from the sides. It is like trying to dig a hole in water. Murphy makes it to the first terrace. 15-foot slope of pure volcanic ash. Too steep to climb, too soft to find purchase. He and 20 other Marines huddle at its base while bullets snap overhead. They need to go up and over. They need to establish positions. They need to dig in. "Start digging," Gunnery Sergeant Walsh orders. "Fighting positions, now." The Marines pull out their entrenching tools. Standard and modified mixed together. They start digging. The difference becomes apparent within seconds. Corporal Jackson has a standard tool. Wide, flat blade. He scoops ash. It slides back. He scoops faster. More slides back. The hole stays shallow. He is working hard but making no progress. The ash will not hold. Chen has a modified tool. The narrow-pointed blade cuts through the ash easily, but that is not the advantage here. The advantage is that the modified design, with its reinforced edge and sharper angle, can pack the ash. Chen figures this out by accident. He strikes down hard, The blade compresses the ash instead of just moving it. He strikes again around the perimeter, creates compressed walls. The ash in the middle stays loose, but the walls hold. Sort of. It is not perfect, but it is better than nothing. "Pack it," Chen yells. "Don't scoop. Pack the walls." Other Marines with modified tools try this technique. It works. Not great, not like digging in coral or soil, but better than the standard tools, which just move ash around without creating anything resembling a fighting position. Within 10 minutes, the Marines with modified tools have shallow depressions with semi-stable walls. The Marines with standard tools have wet ash coating their uniforms and no discernible holes. Murphy is watching this, taking notes in his head. The modified tool works on volcanic ash, but for different reasons than on coral. On coral, it breaks through hard surfaces. On ash, it compresses soft surfaces. Same tool, different application. The blade angle and reinforced edge that made it effective against coral also makes it effective at packing ash. He did not design it for this. It is a happy accident. But it is saving lives anyway. The Japanese counterattack comes at the 2-hour mark. Infantry supported by intense mortar fire. The Marines with compressed ash positions have some cover. Not much. The walls are still only 10 inches high and fragile, but 10 inches below ground level is better than being fully exposed. Mortar fragments mostly pass overhead. Small arms fire hits the compressed ash walls and stops instead of penetrating. The Marines with standard tools, still struggling to create anything resembling cover, take heavy casualties. Murphy watches from his position. Counts. Times. The math is uglier than Tarawa because the ash presents problems he did not anticipate. But the math still favors modified tools. Casualties among Marines with modified tools are running 38%. Casualties among Marines with standard tools are running 64%. 38% is still terrible. Murphy is not celebrating, but it is better than 64. The difference is hundreds of lives across the 3 divisions landing on Iwo Jima. By nightfall of the first day, word has spread across the beach. Get the modified tools, the weird-looking shovels. They work better in ash. Marines are trading cigarettes, rations, anything for them. Supply sergeants are being mobbed. There are maybe 8,000 modified tools spread across 70,000 Marines landing on Iwo Jima. Not enough. Never enough. But the Marines who have them know what they are holding. This is the difference between digging in or dying exposed. Day 3. Murphy's company is pushing toward the airfield. The terrain is still volcanic ash mixed with rocky outcrops. The Japanese are dug into caves and fortified positions. Every yard forward costs blood. Murphy's platoon takes a position on a ridge overlooking the airfield. They need to dig in before Japanese artillery finds them. Lieutenant Marcus Shaw has a standard tool. He is the platoon commander. Officers get standard tools because the modified ones were distributed to enlisted men first. Shaw starts digging. The blade bends within 5 strikes. The volcanic rock under the ash is harder than coral. The standard tool, already weakened from use, cannot handle it. The blade folds at a 30-degree angle. The tool is now useless. Shaw stares at it. Then he looks at Murphy, who is 10 feet away, creating a fighting position with smooth, efficient strikes. "Sergeant," Shaw says, "I need your tool." Murphy does not hesitate. He hands over the modified tool, takes Shaw's broken standard tool. Shaw takes the working tool and starts digging. Murphy examines the bent blade of the standard tool. He has seen this exact failure pattern 40 times. Bent blade, weakened hinge, chipped edge. The tool failed exactly as predicted under exactly the conditions he warned about. He pulls out a pair of pliers and some wire he has been carrying. Field expedient repairs. He straightens the blade as much as possible, reinforces the hinge with wire. It is ugly but functional. Barely. He uses this jury-rigged tool to create a shallow position. It takes 3 times longer than it would with a modified tool, but he gets it done. Around him, the platoon is digging in. Murphy counts tools. 42 men. 18 have modified tools. 24 have standard tools. Of the 24 standard tools, 7 have failed completely. Bent blades, broken hinges. The Marines using them are borrowing modified tools from their squad mates, taking turns digging, or giving up entirely and sharing holes. The artillery comes at dusk. Japanese observers called it in from the caves. Heavy shells walking across the ridge. The Marines, with proper fighting positions, hunker down and survive. The Marines, sharing holes or in shallow positions, take direct hits or shrapnel. 6 dead. 11 wounded. Murphy does the math. If everyone had modified tools, maybe 2 dead, maybe 5 wounded. The difference is 4 men dead because they did not have equipment that worked. 4 men is not 40, not 400. But 4 men have names, have families, have lives that ended because a procurement board in Washington needed 8 months to evaluate evidence. Murphy thinks about Major Hutchins, about his neat handwriting, about controlled laboratory testing. He wonders if Hutchins is tracking Iwo Jima casualties, if he is comparing equipment failure rates, if he gives a single damn about the 4 men who died tonight, or the hundreds who died across the island because standard tools do not work. Week 2 on Iwo Jima. The battle has become a grinding meat grinder. The Japanese are defending from caves and tunnels. Every position has to be taken by hand. The Marines are exhausted, filthy, running on adrenaline and hatred. Murphy's battalion has taken 48% casualties. They are still combat effective, but barely. A runner finds Murphy in a shell crater. Says Colonel Krulak wants to see him. Murphy makes his way to battalion headquarters, which is a hole in the ground covered with a tarp. Krulak is there with 2 other colonels, and a brigadier general Murphy does not recognize. "Sergeant Murphy," the general says. "I am Brigadier General Leo Hermley. I command the landing force for 5th Marine Division. I have been reading reports about modified entrenching tools. Yours." "Yes, sir. I need numbers. Real numbers. How many lives are these tools saving?" Murphy has been tracking this since day 1. He pulls out a notebook covered in ash and blood, opens to a page filled with calculations. "Conservative estimate, sir. We have approximately 8,000 modified tools distributed across the 3 divisions, roughly 11% of the landing force. Casualty rates among Marines with modified tools are running 38 to 42%, depending on terrain. Casualty rates among Marines with standard tools are running 60 to 68%. Difference is attributable to ability to establish effective fighting positions under fire." "Give me the bottom line, Sergeant." "Best estimate, sir. The modified tools have saved between 800 and 1,200 lives so far. That number will go higher as the battle continues. If the entire landing force had been equipped with modified tools before the invasion, we would have saved somewhere between 3,000 and 4,000 casualties, dead and wounded combined." The general is quiet for a long moment. The other officers are looking at Murphy's notebook. At the calculations? At the comparison charts he drew up? Comparing casualty rates? 3,000 casualties, the general says quietly, because procurement could not approve a shovel. Yes, sir. How many modified tools can you produce here? On the island? None, sir. No manufacturing capacity. No materials. I would need a proper workshop, metalworking equipment, and raw materials. Plus time. We are in the middle of a battle. What do you need to produce 10,000 tools stateside? Real production. Not field modifications, Murphy thinks. He has been planning this in his head for months. 3 factories. Metalworking capacity. Steel stock. Quality control system. Training for workers. Authorization to modify existing production lines. And someone with enough rank to tell procurement to get out of the way. The general smiles. It is not a happy smile. I can provide the rank. Krulak, you are now in charge of entrenching tool production. Sergeant Murphy is your technical advisor. You have unlimited authority to requisition materials, facilities, and personnel. I want production started within 2 weeks. I want 10,000 tools delivered to Okinawa before the invasion. Can you do that? Krulak nods. Yes, sir. Then do it. Murphy, you are flying back to the States tomorrow. You are going to show factory workers how to make your tool. You are going to train quality control inspectors. You are going to write the technical manual. And you are going to do it fast, because Okinawa is the last island before Japan, and I will not watch this happen again. Clear? Clear, sir. Murphy flies out the next day. He watches Iwo Jima shrink below him, black volcanic island shaped like a pork chop, covered in smoke and fire. He spent 15 days there, watched men die for every yard of ash, watched his tools make a difference. Not enough of a difference, but some. Better than nothing. Better than watching the standard tools fail over and over, while bureaucrats in Washington demanded more testing. The factories start production 3 weeks later. 3 facilities working around the clock. Murphy oversees everything. He checks every blade angle, every hinge, every reinforced edge. He rejects batches that do not meet specifications. He trains workers until they can make the tool in their sleep. He writes technical manuals and training materials and field guides. 6 weeks after leaving Iwo Jima, the first production run is complete. 22,000 modified entrenching tools, packed in crates, loaded on ships, sent to the Pacific. They arrive at Okinawa staging areas 2 weeks before the invasion. Okinawa is not coral, not volcanic ash. It is rocky soil mixed with clay. The modified tools work perfectly. Better than on Iwo, better than on Peleliu. They cut through rock, they pack clay, they create fighting positions faster than anything else available. The Marines who land on Okinawa with modified tools establish defensive positions in half the time it took on previous islands. Casualty rates are still terrible. Okinawa is a nightmare. 82 days of combat. 12,000 American dead. But the casualty rate would have been worse. Murphy knows this because he has the numbers. He has the comparisons. He has the data from every island going back to Tarawa. Tarawa with 0 modified tools. 42% casualties in the first 76 hours. Peleliu with 300 modified tools. 41% casualties. Iwo Jima with 8,000 modified tools. 39% casualties. Okinawa with 22,000 modified tools. 35% casualties. The curve is bending down. Not enough. Not fast enough. But down. Lives saved. Men who dug in fast enough to survive. Marines who went home to their families, instead of dying in holes they could not create with broken tools. August 1945. The war ends. Murphy is back with his unit, preparing for the invasion of Japan that will never happen. The modified entrenching tool is now standard issue. Official procurement finally caught up with reality. The engineering board approved it. The supply corps authorized production. Major Hutchins signed off on the paperwork 8 months after Peleliu, exactly on his predicted timeline, 6 months too late to matter. Murphy does not care anymore about Hutchins or the procurement board or any of it. He cares about the numbers. He has kept meticulous records. Every island, every battalion, every comparison between modified and standard tools. The final count is 2,300 lives saved. Minimum estimate could be as high as 3,200, depending on which models you trust. 2,300 Marines who dug in fast enough, who established firing positions before enemy fire found them, who went home because a sergeant from Pennsylvania decided that watching men die with broken tools was unacceptable. The modified entrenching tool enters service as the M1951. It will be used in Korea, in Vietnam. Variations of Murphy's design will be adopted by armies around the world. The narrow blade, the reinforced edge, the locking hinge, all of it traceable back to a staff sergeant who timed men dying on a coral beach and decided to fix the problem. Murphy's name does not appear in the official records. The Army credits the design to the engineer board. They filed the patents. They wrote the specifications. They took credit for an innovation that came from an enlisted man who was told his judgment was compromised by combat experience. Murphy does not care about that either. He did not do this for recognition. He did it because Dalton died in 4 minutes 30 seconds, and that was unacceptable. He did it because the system failed and someone had to go around it. He did it because equipment that does not work is the same as no equipment at all. 50 years later, in 1995, a military historian named Robert Leckie publishes a book about the Pacific War. In it, there is a single paragraph about modified entrenching tools appearing at Iwo Jima and Okinawa. No mention of Murphy. No mention of Tarawa or Peleliu or the unauthorized workshops. Just a footnote about improved equipment arriving late in the war. Murphy reads that paragraph in a nursing home in Pennsylvania. He is 74 years old. He has not thought about entrenching tools in decades. But seeing that paragraph brings it all back. The counting, the timing, the math. Dalton dropping into his shallow hole. The 47 deaths he timed at Tarawa. The spreadsheet he kept of casualty rates. His grandson is visiting, sees him reading, asks what is wrong. I saved 2,300 men, Murphy says, and nobody knows. I know, his grandson says. You told me the story. But they do not know. Murphy points at the book. The history does not know. It says improved equipment. It does not say who improved it or why or how many men died before someone fixed it. His grandson does not know what to say. Murphy closes the book, hands it back. It does not matter, Murphy says finally. The tools worked. That is what matters. The rest is just paperwork. But it does matter. It matters that good ideas from enlisted men get ignored until people die. It matters that systems protect themselves instead of the people they are supposed to serve. It matters that equipment failures are treated as acceptable losses instead of solvable problems. Murphy dies in 1998. His obituary mentions his service at Tarawa, Peleliu, Iwo Jima, and Okinawa. It does not mention entrenching tools. His grandson inherits a box of his belongings. Inside is the original prototype, the crude tool Murphy made from Dalton's broken shovel in a maintenance depot in Hawaii. The blade is scarred, the hinge is worn, but it still works. It still cuts through coral, or packs volcanic ash, or digs through rocky soil. His grandson donates it to the Marine Corps Museum in Quantico. They put it in storage. It sits in a box for years until a curator doing inventory recognizes what it is. The narrow blade, the reinforced edge, the modifications that became standard on the M1951. They put it on display in 2015. Small exhibit about equipment development during World War II. The card reads, Modified entrenching tool, circa 1944. Origin unknown. Example of field modifications made by Marines to improve combat effectiveness. Origin unknown. That is how Murphy's story ends. A tool in a museum case. No name, no recognition. Just proof that someone somewhere decided to fix a problem that was killing Marines. But the tool is still there, still on display, and every modified entrenching tool in service today, in armies around the world, traces back to that crude prototype. To a sergeant who timed men dying and did something about it. To 42 days of not sleeping after Tarawa. To math done in blood and ash and broken tools. Dalton died in 4 minutes 30 seconds. Murphy spent the rest of the war making sure that number changed. He succeeded. The average time to establish a fighting position with a modified tool on Iwo Jima was 12 minutes. On Okinawa, 9 minutes. Fast enough to survive, fast enough to matter. That is Murphy's legacy. Not medals or recognition or mentions in history books. Just numbers that bent downward. Casualty rates that dropped. Marines who lived long enough to become veterans instead of statistics. In the end, that was the only math that ever mattered. That is Murphy's legacy. Not medals or recognition or mentions in history books. Just numbers that bent downward. Casualty rates that dropped. Marines who lived long enough to become veterans instead of statistics. In the end, that was the only math that ever mattered.